we are finally finished, completed the burdens, the pronouncements, the prophecies about all of the nations that will suffer, from Tyre to, of course, the Israelites, to the Moabites, the Egyptians. And we come back in now with a new prophecy, a new sense, and this is going to be a much more happy, eventually, messianic prophecy. Again, chapter 24, Hine Adonai bokei ka'aretz uvalka v'iva paneha v'hefitz yoshveha. You might have heard there's a little bit of rhyming in here and a little bit of alliteration as well going on. God will strip the earth bare and lay it waste and twist its surface and scatter its inhabitants. Different ways of understanding that word bokeh. There are many people understand it as an earthquake. And Israel is, it's not like Turkey, but it is on a fault line. There are earthquakes every 100, 150 years or something of that sort. And that's the way that this is understood. During the lifetime of Yeshai, we talked about it during the time period of King Uzziyahu, or Azaryahu. His name is spelled two different ways. When Yeshai was first getting started, there was an earthquake, a major earthquake. V'haya ka'am ka'kohen ka'eved ka'adonav ka'shivcha ka'givrata ka'koneh ka'mocher ka'malveh ka'loveh ka'nosheh ka'asher nasaba. Right, you hear also lots of alliteration there. And the nation, the regular people, the lady, the am, and the priest, and the slave and the master, and the handmaid and the mistress, the buyer and the seller, the borrower and the lender, the creditor and the debtor, right? It's going to happen to all of them. Habok tibo ka'aretz, v'hibos tibos, ki Adonai diber et hadavar hazeh. And again, there, this sense of poetry, hibok tibok, hibos tibos, Hashem diber et hadavar hazeh. The earth will be bare, it will be plundered, for God had spoken this word. So, right, we're starting with some sort of, again, apocalyptic, Gog Magog sort of destruction that's going to happen. Avla nivala haaretz, umlila navla tevel, umlilu marom am haaretz. And again, the same thing, right? Avela, nivala, and tevel, and umlilu and umlila. The earth will be seared. It will languish. Even the most exalted people will languish. It's going to be, right, the people who are marom will languish, will suffer. And I mentioned before we got started, this is going to be messianic. It will be. Trust me, wait for it. But it's interesting to note that very often, and this is the apocalyptic idea, in order for a new temple to be built by Shlomo, we had to have the destruction of the Mishkan in Shiloh. For Bnei Israel to become who they are, they had to go through the Kur HaBarzel. They had to go through the horrors of the oppression of the Egyptians. And so this is something that is in that Yeshayahu saying here, which accords with many of the past developments in the Tanakh up till now, and will be so in the future. Continue in verse 5. V'ha'aretz chanfa tachat yoshveh ki avru torat chalfu chak hefiru brit olam. The earth was defiled by its inhabitants. And why did that happen? Because they transgressed the Torot. Torah, according to many, means teachings. Sam's Rafal Hirsch says it comes from a word for an arrow, because it's the direction you're supposed to go in. But whether you want to take it as literally the Torah, it means God's instructions. They violated the laws. They broke the covenant that they had with God. Al kain Allah achla eretz v'yashmu yoshvei va. Al kain charu yoshvei eretz v'nishar enosh mizar. That's why the curse comes to the earth, and that's why the inhabitants of the earth are punished. That's why the earth's dwellers have dwindled; their numbers are lesser. There are just v'nishar enosh mizar. There are only a few left. There are very few left. And of course, that's something that we've seen over and over again in this book, where Yeshai has spoken about the She'erit HaPleitah, the few that will survive, whether that be from the kingdom of Yehuda or whether that be from the other nations. Right? Most of the Moabites will be killed, but there will be some who will remain, and the Egyptians, and they'll turn to God. That's something that he has spoken about. Only the few will remain. Aval, we're in verse 7 in Pasuk Zayin, Tirosh umlala gafen, ne'enchu kol samchei lev. but the new wine fails. And the vine is there, it's empty, it languishes. And all those who are happy, they sigh. Shavat misos tupim, chadal shaon alizim. Right, the drums, the music and the joy of the drums has been silenced. If there's no more playfulness and there's no more beauty, we had the same word, alizim, aliza, yesterday describing the beauty and the splendor of the city, the great wealthy city of Tyre, of Tsur, and here it's used as well. That's that is all ended. Shavat mesos kinor, right? Silence, stilled, is the kinor, the lyre, or the harp, and right, we think of Shabbat. It's a time of a rest, it's a time of a break, and so that's what's happening here. But here it's in the negative, obviously, not in the positive. Bashir lo yishtu yayin, yemar shechar lishotav. They drink their wine, but there is no song. Liquor tastes bitter to the drinker. Liquor tastes bitter to me, but and here, just think about it. A couple of chapters ago, when the people were thought that they were all going to die because Sancherib, Sargon was surrounded Yerushalayim, and they said, "Let's eat and drink, for tomorrow we will die." And Yeshayahu was screaming at them because they should have put their faith in God. You won't die tomorrow. That's not what's going to happen. Here they're drinking their wine, but there's no joy to it. They're just sort of doing it. Nishbara Kiryat Tohu. Towns are broken, they are empty. Sugar kol bayit mibo. Every house is shut, none enter. It's a place of death, a place that's empty, a vacuum. Of course, you can't read that verse without thinking of the word tohu, tohu vavo, back in the beginning of the Torah, the vacuum, the emptiness, the nothingness before God creates. Tzvacha al hayayin bachutzot, arva kol simcha gala misos haaretz. Even over wine, a cry goes up in the streets, right? Wine, which is v'yayin yismach levave nosh, we'll read in Tehillim, right? That wine is supposed to bring pleasure, and we talked about, right? In the last verse, they're silent, and there's even crying as they're drinking. The sun has set all its joy. The gladness, the joy of earth is gone. It was thrown out. It was gala. It's in galut. It's in exile. Nish'ar ba'ir shama u'shi'iyah yukar sha'ar. Desolation is left in the city, and the gate is battered to ruins, right? The sha'ar. And this is what's going to happen among the people on the earth. When the olive trees are beaten, and when the gleanings are there is no longer. Hema Yesu Kolam Yaronu. Then they will lift up their voices. Finally, they'll be in the foxhole. They have nothing else to eat. They've drunk all their wine. There's no more olive. There's no more food. Then they will lift up their voices. B'gaon Adonai tzahalumai. And they will exalt. They will bring, right? They'll bring high God. And they'll shout, miyam. I read mayim, my apologies. Miyam, they'll shout from the sea, right? Even from the sea, even from far away, all over, they're going to be shouting to God, begging God to help them. Al kain be'urim kavdu Adonai, be'iyeh hayam sham Adonai Elohei Yisrael. Therefore, honor God with lights, all the way in the coastlands of the sea, right? God is like a lighthouse. The name of the eternal, the God of Israel. Miknaf haaretz zemirot shamanu tzfilat tzadik. The Omar Razili, Oili, Bogdim Bagadu, Veged Bogdim Bagadu. You heard that alliteration there also. And from the end of the earth, we're going to hear Zmirot, we're going to hear singing. Right? The righteous are going to bring glory, they're going to sing. And I said, I waste away, right? Razili, woe is to me. Those who have no faith have acted faithlessly. They have broken against God. Pachad, v'pachat, v'pach. Alecha Yosheva Aretz. There's going to be fear, pachad, upachad, and there's going to be a pit and a pacha trap upon those who dwell in the earth. Is this just a trap? What's going on here? V'haya hanas mikol hapachad. Whoever flees, whoever runs, because of that fear, yipol el hapachad va'oleh mitoch hapachad yilakei bapach kirubot mimarom niftechu v'yarishu mostei aretz. Because whoever climbs out, whoever runs away, they'll fall in the pit. And if you climb out of the pit, you're going to end up in the trap. God is going to, the earth is going, the destruction is going to happen. Ro'ah hit ro'ah ha'aretz, por hit porara eretz, mot hit motata eretz. The earth is breaking, and it's doubled over, right? It's breaking. The word is used twice. Ro'ah hit orara. The earth is crumbling. And again, the double for emphasis. It's crumbling. It's really crumbling. The earth is tottering. It's going to fall. It's destruction. Noah tanua eretz. We're in verse 20. Kishikur vitno deda kimluna v'chavad aleha pisha v'nafla v'lo tosif kum. The earth is moving back and forth. Na v'nad na. It's swaying like a drunk person. Doesn't know what's going on here. And right, it's trying to find a place, a hut, but it's going to fall and rise no more. But then, and that day, God will punish the host of heaven in heaven and the kings of the earth on earth. And that's interesting. This is like a mythic moment. We have this certain places in Tehillim and others where there's this idea of God fighting against other creatures, other supernal creatures, whether they be like the Leviathan or other sort of angels or whatever it might be, defeating the sea monsters, suppressing them. And here we have that. That's seemingly what it means. It doesn't mean that Jews believe in that. We've said this before. It may be that was the way people spoke, and so that's the way that they spoke. They'll be gathered in a dungeon. This is talking about, right, the heavenly creatures as captives, and they'll be locked up in a prison. But after many days, they will be remembered. V'chafra halavana uvusha chama himalach Adonai tzvaot bahar Tzion u'Yerushalayim v'neged zikenav kavod. The moon will be ashamed. The sun will be embarrassed. For God of hosts will reign on Tzion and Yerushalayim, and his presence will be revealed to God's elders. And there, finally, in the last verse, we get to the beginning of the sort of the messianic aspect of this prophecy. We're no longer, the destruction has happened, but now, because of all the destruction, we've washed away the filth. We've had those metaphors before, the Babylonians, the Assyrians coming in and washing away the enemies, and then like the fire, burning up their enemies. And here too, in a sense, that's what's happening. And at the end, there is the sense that God is there now. It's interesting to think about what's wrong with the sun and the moon. So it may be that these, it's referring to, according to some, to the worshipers of the sun and the moon, or otherwise because there were certainly people who believed they worship the sun and the moon. That's part of the reason why in the Torah, the word for a sun is a shemesh. Shemesh, I think we said this at one point, is related to the word shamash. Right? It's the shamash. It's the candle that helps. The sun is just God's helper. The sun is not a power in its own. And so, right, all those who think there are other powers and other people to connect with, that's not the way it is. And now God alone is in charge, and the people will begin to recognize it and continue with it in the next chapter.